University San Bernardino faculty member, Rob Ray, who will present a talk to coincide with his exhibition, The Changes You Made May Not Be Saved, which imagines and explores the creative and scientific activities of OSMA that took place inside the Memphis Pyramid in Tennessee. Before joining the faculty here at Cal State, Ray's many accomplishments include being the lead designer for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, not for everything, but for some projects.
Yes.
I just realized
Yes.
I made your job way bigger. And from 1999 to 2008, he was the founding curator of Dead Tech, an electronic art center in Chicago, Illinois. After his presentation, we'll have time for questions and answers. Those will be facilitated by John Fleeman. And before we start, I have a little bit of housekeeping. So please set your cell phones to off or silent. And I want to mention a few other upcoming exhibitions, which Thursday, October 27th, the W. Benson Horror Egyptology scholar, Alexandra Kishak, will be giving a lecture on Wali Tumalat. And on Thursday, November 10th, Kiowa tribal members, conceptual artist Gerald Clark and his daughter, poet Emily Clark, will be in conversation. And on November 17th, art and design faculty member Taylor Moon Castagnari will be presenting on her installation, The Drive-Thru Nation. All lectures will begin at 5 p.m. Without further delay, Rob Ray.
Hey, thank you.
Oh, you don't need this.
I have it on mic. Yeah. I'll go wake my computer up. Okay. Am I good?
Yeah,
Should I do
good
it?
to go.
We'll see if this comes back on.
Hopefully.
Come back on. Okay, yeah, cool. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming. We have a Zoom and YouTube audience as well. So some things I say will make me sound like maybe I'm not speaking to you. And it's because I'm not speaking to you, I'm speaking to them. Like, for instance, I show pictures of the work. That work is right on the other side of the walls, but for them, they may not have seen it. So if I act weird, that's why. Oh. Intriguing. We'll see how this goes. Okay, cool. Thanks for coming, and thanks to the RAFMA so much for all of their help that started sometime early this year. It's been a real journey. I really wanted to give John a super shout out. This work is all new work for me, and so John was the recipient of many of my anxieties across the whole summer, so thank you for fielding those in such a professional and calm manner. It really made me feel good. And I've apologized for this before, but John often asked me, so when is the work coming? And I kept having to say, like, it's coming really soon, the paint's almost dry. So thank you for putting up with that. It's a super pleasure to have such an amazing facility at the disposal of the faculty and the students. And so I'm super flattered, so thank you. Okay. Hey, I'm Rob Ray. I go by he, him. I'm a designer. I'm a professor of design, which is a really fun thing. Slight note on that, talking for a very long time is now an occupational hazard of mine, so I'll do my best to keep you awake. And I'm an extended realities nerd. Thanks to the RAFMA, I kind of already did that, but I wanted to give you all a little octopus and a squirrel. We are on the territory and ancestral land of the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. Every member of the CSU SB community has benefited and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1965. I also wanted to say that, there's places in this talk that are very meaningful to me, but they're also troubling to me. Indigenous sovereignty was and continues to be undermined on these sites. I make a daily practice of thinking about that dichotomy of both adoration and disappointment about the histories that I inhabit and the places I inhabit. I'm devoted to learning more about my accountability and amending the wrongs committed on my behalf as a descendant of European colonizers and a transplant to Southern California, where I live and work daily over in here. I'm a 15-6 today. This is a scale I kind of measure my own feelings by. 15 is over here. I'm a little nervous about the talk today, so I'm over here in the 15 world. But I'm also pretty happy about how the talk is feeling so far. So I'm a 6. I originally gave myself an 8. The 8 is the imposter square because you're not really sure if it's a bird or a cat. And I'm often somewhere over in here in my life, but I'm feeling pretty good, so I'm a 6 today. My sense organ of the day is sight. I try to create a sense organ of the day for myself. I'm a kind of classic computer nerd and designer and stuff, and I feel like I'm usually just like a floating brain in a jar. And so with like no external forces on me or whatever, so I try to like tune in. So sight is my sense organ of the day. This is where we are. This is the view, slight humble brag. This is the view outside of my office window. But it's like spectacular, right? And I just wanted to like share this with the people who are on Zoom and YouTube. Our campus looks as awesome as it is in person in this photo, and so I thought I would share that. And wow, this is our backyard. I have various collaborations in my life. I was an employee of the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab for a long time. That work really kind of deeply influenced the work you see in the other room. And I did work full-time, and I'm also a consultant for Industrial Toys, which is a studio for electronic arts. It's a mobile gaming studio in Pasadena. We'll see how this goes. Come back, come back. What if I wiggle the mouse? Intriguing.
I feel like this could be part of your presentation.
Yeah, this is my new artwork. No input is detected. yeah. My other title is from Google Docs. So this one is from the Christie Projector Company. Let's see. It might be, maybe it's me.
Is it the connection?
Could be. Should I try unplugging and plugging it back in? Can't hurt. Oh, wait. Oh, nice. Yeah, there we go.
Maybe I should just stand here.
I did one time as a kid. I was grounded over the summer for various things I won't really talk about. But to annoy my parents, I learned how to juggle over that whole summer. So if need be, if the projector dies, I'll do my best to juggle throughout the rest of the talk. Okay, so the show is called The Changes You Made May Not Be Saved. This is a kind of promotional image for the show. It doesn't really appear in the show. I'll talk about the collage in a bit. But I use collage making as a kind of way to codify my thinking in a certain way and kind of literally glue my ideas down on the page. And it's an interactive installation for imagining and igniting collectivities. This is a photograph of it. You walked right through it, but I thought I would show it for people who are tuning in online. This is a detailed view of a slightly mysterious computer lab. The computer lab is side by side to a makeshift skate park. Here's another view of the skate park, and in the back you can see this kind of red square, and that red square is a collective ideation system that OMSA, the organization that we're talking about today, used. That image is a concept art diagram that I'll talk about later on. It's really a diagram that explains using the gravity of a planet to launch a spacecraft out into space, even further than we might be able to make it go with little engines. You saw this when you walked in. This is a pirate radio station. This is a collection of flyers made by the OMSA group, and then layered on top are some engineering and science drawings. This is the pyramid on the floor of the map of Memphis. If you are familiar with the town of Memphis, there is a pyramid in Memphis. It's called the Memphis Pyramid. I grew up in Memphis, and so the pyramid has a special meaning to me. And so I'm going to do the thing you should never do in a presentation and read off my slides for a bit. But I want to kind of establish a narrative with you that is a narrative that's in my head. And it's a narrative that you might glue together for yourself by looking at the show, but you might not. And so for the purposes of the presentation, it feels important for us to kind of all be on the same page. I'm going to see if I can now click with my left hand while looking at this thing. Okay. A single photograph, a hand-drawn map, a collage on the front of a missing notebook, a pyramid, a space program, a raid. From 1991 to 1994, a small group in Memphis, Tennessee joined together under the name OMSA, Orange Mountain Space Agency, to establish an anarcho-collectivist counterpoint to NASA, the US National Aeronautics and Space Administration. A single photograph seems to be the only physical evidence of OMSA's One More Sexy Anarchist mission control center located on the top levels of the Memphis Pyramid, a neglected sports and entertainment arena on the Tennessee bank of the Mississippi River. The photograph depicts a collage of a tennis star, Althea Gibson, pasted onto the cover of a composition notebook with the sentence, "I think the changes worked," handwritten in black marker. A small hand-drawn map illustrates the back of the photograph, perhaps describing the notebook's hiding place inside the pyramid. So my task is salvaging what I know about OMSA and communicating that knowledge to you through my installation. Imagining the group's creative and scientific endeavors that they took on inside the pyramid. So a question is, how might OMSA, our maybe secret advantage, how might their vision for space exploration shine through in my 1/24 scale models of the collective's pyramid facility? And that's the base platform you're seeing out there in the installation. In this installation, I extract what may be known and postulate full-scale displays of their collective ideation system and communications infrastructure using augmented reality overlays, speculative promotional materials, and a pirate radio broadcasting station. This broadcasting station is the first thing I'm going to talk about today. This broadcasting station is Kdzu. Kdzu is a makeshift pirate radio station. Here's a detailed view of it. You can see a little collage on top of this notebook, sort of different collage. This is where a DJ would log the songs that they play. This is a kind of ironic, by the group, thrifted coffee mug with celebrating the opening of the pyramid that they're now illegally residing in. You can see tapes and CDs from the era, like De La Soul is Dead, Naughty by Nature, stuff like that. You can see the microphone they use and an early CD player that they also use. This is some of the music they played: Dub the Funky Homo Sapien, Public Enemy, Dub Syndicate, The Coup, Leaders of the New School, etc. These are some cassette tapes, fans of Public Enemy. Snap, Rhythm is a Dancer, classic from 1991, I think. X-Lands, To the East Backwards, KMFDM's Virus, The Beastie Boys, So What You Want, single. And so they're a freeform community pirate radio station that people in Memphis can tune into and enjoy. But they're also a surreptitious network node serving anarcho-collectivist communities up and down the Mississippi River. And they are, dumpster diving their faces off, but they need to share a lot of hardware, software, and brain power because the network of collectivities are building a space probe, hoping to land on this exoplanet and then beam that experience back to Earth. Not so easy on no budget. About all that, stay tuned. There'll be some future installation that I make that will sort of articulate perhaps how this effort turns out, whether they succeed or fail, what maybe happens to them. We'll see. So back to Kdzu. It's a surreptitious network node. And so what does that mean, right? Well, each cassette and CD contains an encoded message. And when the media from this CD or tape is played on the radio, they are communicating a share, that they could call a share, of equipment out to their other nodes. And a share could consist of, we need something. We need a solar panel. We need some wrenches, whatever it is. Or we have an extra monitor to spare. Does anybody need one? So it's a way for them to communicate surreptitiously to the other nodes using kind of entertainment media as a kind of barge that their container is inside. So radio DJs at Kdzu serve two functions. One function is they entertain local Memphians, tuned into the radio. The other one is they're logistics coordinators for the extended collective. So we have three tapes, right? Three sort of classic tapes from the late 80s and early 90s. Some of you may own these on various forums or listen to them on Spotify. And we'll take Outkast as the first example. So when the Outkast tape is played, it is pre-encoded with an ask. And the ask is, the mission named Alice needs a color CRT, and that location is in St. Louis. That encoding happens along with a sort of voiced over message that the DJ, radio DJ reads, sort of like a PSA that they might from the radio. The collective in St. Louis needs a large color monitor, anyone can spare, any condition. This then ask and music is then sent over the radio to people listening. And people who are listening party down to Outkast as it's played over the radio. And people who have what's called a pyramidal decoder can decode the message then and hear the message and see a 3D model of the ask. I'm going to play a short video. The audio will be probably hard to hear. It's just going to be over my speakers. All you really need to know is that it's the radio DJ voice sort of articulating the message that you're reading here. It wasn't really worth hooking up speakers and stuff for that, for one single thing. So we'll see how it goes. This then is Wire's very kind of infamous and cool tape document and eyewitness from Notre Dame Hall. This piece of media is encoded with the mission named Wilma. That mission is in Minneapolis. They have a bench grinder, and they're available to give this bench grinder to some other network node that needs it. So the radio DJ encodes the collective in Minneapolis has a bench grinder to spare. Anybody need it? That message then goes out to the other nodes. Poor Righteous Teachers, that cassette tape, that mission Althea, they have a thing that they can give out, a 100-watt solar panel. That location is in Memphis. That anytime a song from this tape is played, that is broadcast out to the network. So, let me go back one. Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm going to show, so I'm using an augmented reality app as a way to describe how the decoder works. And I'm going to show you a video of what that augmented reality app is. But I kind of wanted to share with you how I'm thinking about certain things that you're seeing in the show right now. So the video layer on top of the flyers is a digital object, right? It's made of pixels and light being broadcast onto the wall. Augmented reality, this app I'm crafting, is another kind of digital layer, and I'm using the digital as a kind of storytelling layer on top of the layer made out of atoms, paper, plastic, metal, etc. So the layer that's made out of paper, plastic, metal, etc., is the layer we in the world know without being all the wiser, right? Without being sort of tuned into what the collective's doing. The digital layer, be it augmented reality or projected excitations of light particles, those are the surreptitious activities of the underground, the secret layer. So here's Poor Righteous Teachers, right? It's a cassette tape. And so this is a pyramidal decoder app. This app will be coming out sometime soon. And when you scan any piece of media, you can see sort of like, asking, S-I-R-I, I will not say who that is, who made this song? And so what you're getting in the augmented reality layer, right, is this communication to the other network nodes that this solar panel is in excess, and if anyone needs it, hit them up. So again, like I said, this digital layer, so I'm an augmented reality nerd. I'm really into VR. I'm into all that kind of stuff. But it often gets weird when you're trying to use it because it just feels attached on top of another thing, right? And this is my first really experiment in storytelling and world building through my art making. Most of my art is very kind of experiential. You just kind of go in and you put on a headset and you do a weird dance and then you are amused or frustrated and then you leave, and that was my art, right? So this is like a new project for me, and so I'm really sort of thinking about storytelling and narrative and slippery narrative and historical details. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I use digital technologies in cohabitation with physical objects. And so this is where I'm at with it. And this is a thing that like isn't really in this show, but it's where my head's at. And I thought as part of the artist talk, it would be fun for you to kind of know like, oh, he's setting the base layer out here. So then as the digital starts to encroach on top of it, how it will be used. And I would be super also interested to hear from other people who use digital technologies in their art making, like how does that function? Like what sort of levers is it pulling? Because for me, I'm very panicked about how I'm doing it. So it'd be cool to hear from you like how that's going and what that's doing. Okay, so again, pixels, the unknown kind of OMSA, still undiscovered by external authority structures. This is inspired by a thing that does exist in the world called image encoding into audio. If you know Aphex Twin, he's kind of prankster fellow into brainy music. I like that stuff. These QR codes are hot, by the way, so feel free to check out these links. So Aphex Twin and some other people use this tool to kind of encode visuals into the waveform. And so you can play a track back, and using a special piece of software, you can see a slow scan kind of image encoded into that song. And I really like that metaphor, and so I grabbed onto that metaphor, and I'm using augmented reality in 2022 instead of in 1994, whenever Aphex Twin did it, to see if I can make that happen. I'm also equally inspired by the Berkeley Public Library's tool ending library. When I was like a wet behind the ears punk rocker kid, I was so awestruck by this idea that a library could be something else. It could be a community resource in ways that we didn't really imagine, or something more than books. And so I like this idea of kind of using nodes like a library system to make the world a more interesting and better place. And so this kind of equipment loaning is really lifted off the Berkeley Public Library's real hard work that they do. I'm also super inspired by radio in general. Radio is a huge part of my life. These are 5 radio stations that I adore. WEVL in Memphis, I'll talk about them in a little bit. WPRK in Orlando, Florida. I moved to Florida as a high schooler, and I would tune into WPRK all the time and just totally just soak up anything I could get. WZRD was a radio station at Northeastern Illinois University. I was a DJ there for about 4 years. WLPN is Lumpen Independent Radio in Chicago. It's not attached to any school or anything. It's completely community funded, really wonderful radio station. And many people know of WFMU in East Orange, New Jersey. Just, I don't know, a unicorn in the world of community radio. Like, they do so much. They're such a powerful force in my life and many other people's life. And just in the face of like Spotify and everything else. And that's not a diss on Spotify. It's just like they're just saying like, this is our world and we're doing this. And everything else can just happen. We're doing this. And that is really uplifting for me because I often feel super torn about that kind of stuff, especially as like a digital practitioner. It's easy to feel like you're uncool. You were cool yesterday, but you're not cool today. So WEVL, this is what the radio station looked like in 1978. It was founded 2 years before that. This is in Memphis, Tennessee. Again, WEVL is a completely independent, listener-supported radio station. They're not funded by anyone. They're not attached to a university. No diss on any university. But like they really just decided they would do a thing, and they are doing it and have been doing it for 40 years. In 6th grade, I got tuned into WEVL, and I used to just tape record this punk rock show that came on the weekends at night, and it came on at like 10 o'clock, and so I was like in 6th grade, so I would fall asleep by 10:30. And so I would just hit record on the tape deck. This is a slightly cooler version of the tape deck I had as a kid, but I like that this one's called New Wave. And so I would just hit record, and I would fall asleep, and I would hear the chunk of the cassette tape, and I would jump up and like flip the tape over, hit record, and I would just keep doing that until it felt like I would hear something on the radio, and it would sound like country music or something. I'd be like, okay, I got all the punk rock I need. And then I would just like listen to that stuff. And some of those songs, I didn't know even what they were until like 10, 15, 20 years later. I was like, oh my God, that's that song? Negative Approach is one of the bands that I didn't know who that was for a very long time, and then I heard it, and I was like, what is this? And I will admit that the digital world hooked me up, and I asked SIRI who this was, and they told me who it was, and so thank you, Apple, for doing that. And these are, by the way, Kmart cassette tapes, KMC. These are not the fancy Maxell types. I had to mow a lot of middle-class lawns to buy these cassette tapes. This is WEVL as it exists in the 21st century. Ray Barnes has a really great, this is a photo from Ray Barnes, he has a really great kind of narrative of WEVL on his blog. It's really beautiful. This is Judy Dorsey, who's a person I just was in contact with a couple months ago. I decided to contact WEVL and ask them about this part of my life, and said, like, you know, I used to listen to WEVL. I lived in Memphis in the mid '80s, and I don't. This is the longest shot in the world, but who was this person who played all this music that radically altered my life? And I kind of thought I wouldn't get an answer. You know, a lot of community groups have a lot of things to do and not a lot of people running the ship all the time or monitoring email addresses. But I got an immediate reply back from Judy Dorsey. Hi, Rob, it's great to hear from you after all this time. That hardcore show was actually on Saturday night, and the volunteer's name was Brad. He was from Germantown and quite young, 17 or 18. The show was on in '86 and maybe a little in 1987. Driving me crazy trying to remember the name of the show, but I can find it out. And I was just floored, like, to hear, like, oh my gosh, this small group of people who operate in this house, who've been doing it for 40-something years, got back to me, knew who it was in the mid-'80s who actually had that show, and just bothered to even email me back. And I think that's a testament to, sometimes as art makers, we kind of wonder, like, is this really moving the needle? You know, like, is this change? And this to me felt like this really, like, loud blast in my face of this is change. Like, even though it's a really small gesture, it's a 50-mile radius of a show, like, it can make a sort of 40-year reverberation across time, and that was really powerful to me. Okay, one thing I wanted to share. So one of the things that's kind of fun about trolling eBay, I don't know, I've been trying to get Amazon out of my life. By the way, there's a collective action against Amazon tomorrow that people should know about. So I've been using eBay a lot and trying to deal with more independent online outlets, I guess. And so I have all these saved searches in eBay, and so I have all these Memphis Pyramid ones. And I found this photo, and this photo is the architect's concept of the Memphis Pyramid as they imagined it in 1986 or 87. This was in 89, this photo. I think it was already under construction in 89, but what I was totally freaked out by is, so I imagined this shortwave transmitter being on the top of the Memphis Pyramid and, like, doing all this stuff. Well, they too imagined a shortwave radio transmitter on the top of the pyramid as well. And I was just like, I can't believe that, like, I had this idea that I thought was so edgy, and, like, here are these people who are like, you know, whoa, yes, like, one of these people is the co-founder of Hard Rock Cafe or something. And I was like, dang it, I'm so uncool still. But, like, they wanted to put a shortwave transmitter in the top of the Memphis Pyramid to broadcast out blues music and stuff like that to the world. Never happened. You know, all these great ideas, only half of them ever get made. That should make us feel good as artists. Only half of our stuff ever gets made as well. This is also kind of, dare I say, a much more imaginative implementation of the pyramid than what we really got. But, you know, it's cool. And I just scored this photo for like $7 on eBay. Okay, so collage making. A little bit about collage making. I'm just doing a time check for myself. Oh yeah, not too bad. Like I said before, collage is a way that I kind of slow myself down, I think. Like many of you probably, a lot of my creative thinking is through a computer, and I find that fruitful, but also like kind of without limit in a way that doesn't feel super healthy to me all the time. And so I try to make collages as a way to kind of, again, solidify or like congeal an idea. And I really wanted this idea of collage to be something also that the group OMSA does. And so in my narrative, you know, they developed this, they had this notebook with a collage on the front that is a gesture towards this successful space flight attempt that they made. There's also a collage on top of the notebook in the radio station. And they named their missions after African-American historical athletes. And so Althea is one of their missions. And so they use this image of Althea Gibson, sort of, you know, and I'm imagining it sort of launching the spacecraft off into space as she hits the tennis ball in the air. And so I kind of started with this image. And I have this is just a sampling. I have like a small refrigerator-sized box full of Scientific Americans from the 80s. I got them in 2012 from this place in New Mexico called the Black Hole. Some of you may have been there. It's closed now. Ed Grothus was this peace protester who lived in New Mexico and was constantly pulling military surplus out of the various militarized institutions that are in New Mexico and selling it as the Black Hole surplus. I was there with friends of mine, Matt Coolidge and Aurora Tang, and we were just kind of running all through the place because we knew it was going to close, and so I had saved up some money and I was going to buy a bunch of stuff. But one of the things I bought was this giant box of Scientific Americans. Inside the black hole, it usually looks like this, like there's a bunch of oscilloscopes and all that kind of stuff. But there's also this room that's filled with paper and stuff. And I already had bought like all this equipment and stuff, and I didn't have a ton of money, but I was like, they're getting rid of all this paper really cheap. And so I hauled out with this really big bag of Scientific Americans from the room that looked like this. And so here's some of them. So I made this collage from the Scientific Americans, but accepting this image of Althea Gibson here. But something bad happened. I lost a piece. And so this piece here, that is these satellites flying through space, disappeared into my studio like a week before the show opened. And I was like, oh my God, because I didn't glue it down. I had made it, but I was like, I'm gonna wait to glue it down because I kind of, just in case I want to do something or whatever. And never do that, because you'll lose a piece, which is what happened to me. So I lost this piece, and the problem with making collage from discarded materials is they become immediately precious because you can't get them anymore. Like, you have them, they're trash. And then the trash just, the idea of them and the existence of them, other than the part you have, just dissipates into the future. And then I lost a piece, and I was like, oh my God, I lost this piece. My collage, it's a critical part of the collage. It's like her hitting the satellite off into space. With no satellite, it's just a person playing tennis on space. Like, that's not what I'm going for. So I was like, oh, what do I do? So I have this giant box of Scientific Americans, and I have no idea which issue this piece came from. So I don't even know how to go get it again. Like, I don't even know which one to get. It's like, it could be September 1987. It could be October 1982. There's 120 possible issues that happened in the 80s of Scientific Americans. Like, what do I do? And I did find this piece. And I was like, OK, this is the piece it was cut from. You can see the little piece cut there. And I also could tell, like, OK, it's page 53, right? But the problem is like, which page 53? Like, there's 120 possible issues from the 80s. I knew it was somewhere in the 80s. There's 120 page 53s out there in the world in Scientific American land. But at least I have a clue. So then I was like, well, these are like kind of spacey things, and there's like a thing exploding over here. And so I was like, okay, well, I know generally maybe what the articles might have been named or something. And so I found this, Strategic Defense and Directed Energy Weapons from September 1987. I was like, I got it, bam. So I went on eBay, and I bought that sucker. And I was wrong. That's not it. This, if you'll notice, says page 39. And if I had been more attentive and not been in a panic and not been fielding calls from my friends at the RAFMA about where my artwork is going to be, I would have noticed that this was not the right one. But it really pulled me in. And so I got it. On eBay, you're like, OK, it's going to show up any day now. And I got it, and I was like, I'm wrong. And so I went back, and then I figured out, aha, this has a thing called anti-satellite weapons, page 45. And the next article is page 56. So I think this is the one. And I was right. And so I got it, and I got it from eBay. It came in, and I was like, yes, this is it. And so I just wanted to share with you that this is actually the image. This is where it came from. Sadly, you'll notice, sorry, I skipped forward. This is after the opening already happened. I was like, oh, the collage just can't be in the show because I don't have this piece. A little inside thing. The notebook was going to be in that second layer underneath the pyramid, so it was going to be like the Easter eggs. Like, if you walked around just looking at, and if you were very attentive, you might look down at this one little piece of light. There's a hole out there for the light, but it's not there. And you could see the notebook lying in wait underneath the diorama, but it didn't happen. So that's my story. I'm a big jerk. But here it is, and here it is kind of in position, and here it is overlaid on top of the other one, and so you can kind of see how it got used in space. And like I said, I make collage as a way to kind of calm myself down and like solidify the moment. And instead what I did is I lost a piece and just blew the whole thing and made myself feel bad. But art can be therapeutic. I just haven't found that part of it yet. Okay, I'm almost done, but I just wanted to share a little bit about 3D printing. So people ask at the opening about 3D printing. A couple different techniques are used. This is a kind of, most of this stuff here is called like laser sintered. It's a kind of powder of resin, and you hit it with a laser, kind of like a laser cutter. It hardens, and you can make these finely detailed things. This little one here is used I use a resin printer for that. And so I thought if people have questions in the talk or want to ask about 3D printing, please do that. I just wanted to kind of put a marker here that if people had questions, please ask about it. A couple things. I'll hand these out. These are not my precious Scientific Americans, but these are other ones that I thought I would pass around, and they're super fun to look at. The car ads are spectacular, by the way. Like, they're just so awesome and ridiculous. And like, you'll see ones from like Peugeot and stuff. And you're like, Peugeot? Like, they didn't make it, at least here anyway. Lots of cigarette ads, weird, it's like the RCA Selectavision 650. No other video cassette recorder gives you more than this one. These are all in a landfill right now, right? Like, that's the other thing that's weird to think about. Like, everything in here is in a landfill, pretty much. It's pretty weird. Anyway, I'll hand these around if anybody wants to check those out. Oh, maybe we'll do one on this side, and feel free to pass that one this way. And then if anybody wants to check out this one, they're really fun. I'm really distracting people from my talk by giving you something more interesting than myself, but that's okay. If you want a Kdzu radio station sticker, the fictional Kdzu has stickers. Also, just a kind of secret heads up, Kdzu is becoming an actual radio station, so stay tuned for that. I'll just stop there about that. But if you want a radio station sticker, feel free to take a few. One of the funnest things about art making is you get to make stickers for stuff. Also, there's nothing that motivates you more like I made the sticker, right? If you make the sticker, you got to do it. Like, you got to do the thing, whatever it is, because you made the sticker. So there's some stickers. I think it's enough if we pass them back, if anybody wants one. These are some, don't touch the art. People kind of feel that. And so I wanted to pass around some 3D printed things. This is one of those laser-sintered chairs, if anybody wants to touch it and feel it, see what it's like. This is one of the most beautiful 3D prints in the world, in my humble opinion. It's a little milk crate. It's got all the little holes. And then this is one of the keyboards. And if you drop them, whatever, no big deal. This is the great thing about digital technology. We're so cavalier and wealthy in the digital world. We don't care about the physical. It doesn't matter. So if you want to check those out or pass them around, feel free to do that. And then, let's see. I might have other stuff in here. Oh, this is kind of a joke, but some people haven't really spent much time with cassette tapes, so if you want to come up and check out what they are like, you can. I'm old enough to be okay with it. Yeah, but it's, and that's not a diss, I think cassette tape labels are a new thing again, like the thing people are doing. Yeah, they're back, and so, and I don't know, this is a whole other artist talk, but one of the things I'm trying to kind of deal with is my own biases and adorations for dead media, but at the same time, I don't want it to be this salutes to the past. I don't really care about that stuff. It's meaningful to me personally, but I don't care that it goes away, because in a way, it's not ever gone away. It's still around. So if anybody wants to check out some cassette tapes, I'll leave them up here. Okay, this is just my 3D printer. People always ask, what's your 3D printer? It's a favorite thing that 3D printing people ask other 3D printer people. So here it is, the Anycubic Photon Mono X6K. It would be, maybe it would just be fun to do a resin printing workshop or something somehow, and we'll just have people nerd out on that and not take up the artist talk for that. Anyway, thanks. That's my talk. Thanks so much for coming. Yeah, it's really great to have you.
Thank you.
We have a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think we have a little time for questions. Thank you, Rob. I'm just going to move this because I would probably trip on it.
Yeah, it's okay. You can step on them, eat an egg sandwich off of it.
I am John Fleeman. I'm the exhibition designer here and assistant director. So I am the person that Rob is referring to, who was bugging him and calling him, wondering where the art is. but
always very patiently.
It was a great pleasure working with Rob and organizing this exhibition. But it reminds me of the first conversation we had, and
Oh my
he was
God.
she's trying to explain to me the concept for this exhibition. So you can imagine,
It was a 2-hour meeting
What we've-
of me talking.
with no visuals, I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on with this exhibition.
Yeah.
So it was, and you remember we're talking about traveling consciousness through space, and living in in like dual existences, and what would it take to do that? And he's telling me about how much memory it would take and terabytes of consciousness, and I started to feel like
lot.
I was watching the same way that I feel whenever I watch one of those documentaries on defining infinity and wormholes, which is not smart at all. So in my defense, I kept saying after that, okay, well, this is a really cool idea, but what are we going to put in the gallery? What is this a sculpture? Is this a painting? What is it? And it evolved.
It's a cube. It's a cube.
So
Yeah, it is a cube.
but it was a very
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
project to work on and see, and
was
be
great.
a part of that, the evolution and bringing that to reality was.
Thank
was
you
great
again,
fun. So
John. Like,
thanks.
yeah, I was a mess.
So I'm hoping that you all have questions, because I had a lot for like a month and a half. I think there was another question, and then he changed it on me.
Yeah, I changed it on him. Yeah,
He changed the concept.
Yeah, I rolled back in time. So like originally it was about them having already landed the spacecraft onto a planet and like what was going to happen. But then I got super cold feet about that because I feel like I suck at this. So I was like, I got to take it back to Earth because I have to just start here. And I'd also been reading like a ton of science fiction. I felt like I was too attached to that idea, so I had to like re-scramble it. But then I was like, John, it's changing a little bit. But we got it.
Well, yeah, it was sort of the prequel.
Yes, it's a prequel. This is a prequel, yeah.
So anyway, I would like to open this up for questions. So and like I said before we started, we are live streaming this event via Zoom and YouTube. So that's why I'm using this microphone so that the audio can feed there. So if you have a question, we were joking around like Phil Donahue, but I think there's only a couple people in the room that understand that reference. But I will run out and hold the microphone for you so that our audience online can hear the questions. So who has the first question? Kathy Gray? No, you can't go first. Kathy, no, I'm kidding. Okay, here we go.
So this isn't so much about the work in your show.
Right, okay.
But
okay.
it does relate. I feel like there is this kind of collision of like super high-tech stuff and real like old school things that were probably high-tech in their day.
Yes, yeah.
And so maybe this is actually two questions. And so one is, like, what do you think of sort of this current cutting-edge technology do you think will not stand the test of time?
Yes.
But my other question is related but unrelated. How you said working at JPL like has had an impact on you.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there was ever something that you did or saw others do at JPL that seemed like not high tech.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's an amazing collection of thoughts. Let me see. Okay. So JPL is a very un-high tech place in a lot of ways. It is a very high tech place, but it's also just a quick thing about space missions. So the JPL, a neighbor of ours, make unhumaned spacecraft that lands or goes out to deep space or other planets, exoplanets, whatever, and does stuff, right? And the kind of, to like roll that up into a quick ball, think of it like building a super duper 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 custom car that everybody has an opinion about, right? But it's super fancy. And then you finish the car, and then you just like push the car into a gymnasium, for example, then close the gymnasium doors and weld them shut. And then remote control the car around in the gymnasium without running into anything, right? Like that's the difficulty layer that's the kind of mental model I have of what the JPL does, right? It has to be super bespoke, super working, super expensive, and never crash or wreck, but you also don't really get to control it. You just kind of get to ask it to do things, and it tries to do them. So because of that, things like machine learning are like, sorry, not machine learning, like, machine learning, certain just technology suites, they just let them go by, right? They're just like, nope, that's going by. And augmented reality and virtual reality was one of those for a long time until they kind of realized, like, this isn't maybe a technology that we're going to use on another planet. It's one that we're going to use it's one we're going to use ourselves. And so that's a very kind of grounded thinking about technology that I really appreciate. The other one is JPL, like us, is in an arroyo, you know. And the kind of beautiful thing about Southern California is we are surrounded by this complicated idea we call an arroyo. And the thing that you really do when you want to test out your spacecraft at JPL is you go to the arroyo and you get schooled, right? You take it out there, it's 110 degrees, it's getting hotter, you're sweating, and it doesn't do what you want it to, and you feel like a big dummy. And so the arroyo is this oldest of old school places, you know, it's geologically old, where you go to fail and learn. And I find that like a super beautiful and important moment in humanity, where like you're doing this thing that you've been just like not sleeping over, sweating, reading academic papers about, you make the thing, and then you take it to like a place that is very palpably millions of years old, billions of years old, and watch it fail. And that is like a really wonderful, it's the thing everyone else hates, but when it's not your project, you can be like, that's beautiful, you know? But when it's your thing, you're just like, ah. But like, I love that moment. And I would just go to the arroyo, I would bike to JPL, and I would always take the long way around, so I could see people go to the arroyo early in the morning because it's cooler, so you can see them out there like with their ugly science face on because it's not working, but I always found that beautiful. So that's maybe the oldest thing I could think of. And I am also, as you very aptly noticed and articulated, is that intersection of new and old. As a kind of new media practitioner, this idea of new media is this kind of idea of reinvention, but it's also this idea of like an exhaust pipe that's just blowing stuff out the other end. And I really like the exhaust pipe part of it. Like I like the stuff that blows out the end that kind of gets discarded or fails or whatever. We could talk about the metaverse, but I won't do that. But that's the place for me that I find deeply troubling, but also beautiful in this way that it will fail, but what falls out of it might be beautiful. So we'll see. But thanks for the question. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Anybody else?
No?
If I only get one question, I've really failed.
You guys cannot have understood that all.
I was going to say, this, my boss is sitting in the front row, like you got to ask me questions. I'm kidding. But
I have a...
oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's see if there maybe... Yeah, see if there are any... If you are on Zoom, please put a question in the chat, and I can read it off.
Yeah, cool.
For Rob. While we're waiting for that, I have to say, this is just not really a question, but a side note. Rob sort of broke a record in that StratCom, which is Strategic Communications Department here on campus.
Yeah.
All of the press releases and have to get approved through StratCom. So the description of this exhibition is intentionally a bit encrypted, and you know it's confusing if you don't understand it because OMSA keeps changing. Yeah. So Rob was the first person to confuse StratCom so much that we had to have a meeting with Rob at StratCom, and they kept saying, "Why are these things keep changing? Is this a real story?" And so I was trying to explain to them, well, this is the intent. We want people to. There's this process of discovery. Yeah. But StratCom, just for future reference for all of you, does not really appreciate the process of discovering the truth.
I definitely owe some people over there a nice drink. Yeah, yeah. I will. Oh yeah, cool, sure.
How do you imagine the next iteration of this narrative? Like, how will it manifest? Do you have any ideas?
The fun and scary thing about making new work is I've planted 1 million seeds, you know, and the bad part of that is it's really hard to look at the thing you've done and feel like it's finished or feel like it's clearly articulated because there's all these pieces to it that you want to be attached to it or kind of a total or something. I'd say the next piece is taking Kdzu into today. And Kdzu is the radio station. In the kind of narrative of OMSA, the police raided the pyramid and everyone scattered. And we don't really know what happened to them, right? They're all over the place. They're across the Mid-South, the Midwest, we don't know. So Kdzu was a radio station, and I'll share this little tidbit. A phone number has popped up in Goldfield, Nevada, that Kdzu now answers. And that's what we know so far. I can share the phone number with you if you want. But if you call it right now, they won't answer because I'm here. But yes, am I? Oh, it goes to voicemail. Yeah, no, you're right. It would. Okay, so Kdzu's new phone number is. Oh, I texted Kdzu. They told me hi back. Let me. Let's call it. Okay, this is the number. 755. That's in Nevada. Apologies, I almost said Nevada, which is anyone from Nevada. Anyone from Nevada? It is Nevada, not Nevada. It's Nevada. Oh no. Okay, cool. So I was right to begin with. Nevada. 566 is the Goldfield prefix. So I didn't know this about telephone numbers, but the first 3 digits after the area code are kind of the city it's from. And I really wanted the smallest of small towns in Nevada, but I didn't want like Pahrump because Art Bell's from Pahrump, and some other kind of people I don't love. And so I didn't go with that, but I wanted to go with Goldfield. Goldfield was a boom town, now an ex-boom town, kind of close to Death Valley. And so 775-566-5398 is Kdzu's phone number. And if you call in with a request, they'll play your request if it's not on a major label. And so Kdzu will be using this phone number in other 21st century technologies to articulate itself as a bubbling up from the ashes of what was OMSA. So that's the next project, I think. A quick note about OMSA if we have time. To John's point earlier, OMSA, every time it's used, it has to be, by a member, it has to be paired with an unfurling of the acronym itself, OMSA. And the kind of rule that OMSA has established for itself is that every time OMSA is articulated, a different acronym has to be attached to it. So in a press release, if the acronym OMSA is used 4 times, there's a different, in parentheses, version of OMSA next to it, which made Stratcom really freaked out, which is totally respectable and normal. And so OMSA might mean like one more sexy anarchist at one time. And then it might mean Orange Mountain Space Agency. And there's a logic for that. And I had to explain this to Stratcom. And they rode with it, so I guess it was somewhat solid. So here's the thing. Part of being a collective is ensuring that the collective is nurtured, right? And so things like names are kind of these like codified moments in a collective's life can harm the health of the collective. Identity is a thing that really can harm a collective. People kind of know it as a thing, and then they can't unknow it as a thing. And so re-articulating what OMSA is every time is an attempt to re-articulate what OMSA is out into the world and to oneself, and also a direct kind of undoing of single authorship, right? So there is no one definition of OMSA, no one person defined OMSA. It is defined by each member at all times whenever they choose to do it. And so that's also an attempt to deflect OMSA's possible enemies, right? If you hear on the word Antifa used on Fox News, for example, right? Like this word Antifa has become this kind of rallying point to push against this kind of ideology more than an actual group, right? And so OMSA, because at one point it could mean Orange Mountain Space Agency, and then at another quick moment it could mean one more sexy anarchist, or it could mean like, oh my sweet ass. Yes, thank you, yes, yeah. The collective will be contacting you about membership, but it is then constantly diffusing the understood intentions of the group by its enemies, right? So if you're like, those people named one more sweet ass are really, they're burning down buildings. You're like, they're called one more sweet ass. How really harmful could they be, right? And so it's this kind of playful but yet deliberate attempt to kind of constantly defend itself in a kind of judo kind of way against this kind of pushback that happens with it. So at the cost of legibility and understandability, right? And this is where StratCom is involved, is you have to make the decision and be comfortable to say, like, no one's really going to know what this thing is because it's constantly being renamed. And you have to kind of be okay with that in a kind of pragmatic sense and embrace the kind of poetic nature of the thing in order for the poem to have pragmatism. So that's the goal. We'll see. I don't know. In the world of social media, that's really hard. Like, they're going to have to buy a domain name every other month with a different thing. I don't know. So, and that's maybe part of it too. So, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, though, because it's a thing that confuses everybody.
Okay, one more chance for a question. All right, well, Rob, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming. Thank you, internet people. Yeah, wherever you are. Camera, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're back there.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I know a lot of people have stuff to do, this time of night. So.
Thank you all for
And if you have
coming.
questions or comments or whatever, come on up. Yeah. There's some people who I have seen in a bit, too, so come on up and say hey. Oh, yeah, nice. Thanks.
Do you ever, with a lot of your augmented reality and
Yeah.
all that stuff, do you see like an overlap with virtual tours are starting to kind of be
Oh,
uncommon?
yeah.
Do you see an overlap there, or maybe something in the future?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think, I teach the extended reality class, and one of the challenges we have with that exact idea is trying to always hook people into it. It's like with